We are talking about CEOs going rogue, only our favourite subject. We're going to talk about how boobs are like blah blah.
Sometimes I don't think they think what they've posted is out there, or they're just actually dickheads.
They get off on like this feeling of power and villainy in some ways. There's this philosophy in sexy startup land that you move fast and break things. And now it's easier than ever to break trust.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Blame It on Marketing. We are talking about CEOs going rogue. Only our favourite subject, only the only reason we're here. No, kidding. We like to talk about marketing, but it is a thing that happens to marketers a lot, right? That's one of the areas of criticism in our lives, our CEO. So we are really, really happy to be joined by Amber, who has made this a whole newsletter and type of content out of it. But I'll let you introduce yourself, Amber.
I am Amber, and I'm just like so obsessed with juicy gossip. And there seemed to be last year so much of it going around on LinkedIn, just and a lot of founders just kind of like getting in on it for engagement or for, I don't know, whatever reason. And at one point, I can't remember what post it was, but I was like, why are these guys acting like this? And they are usually guys. I'm going to write a newsletter about it because I know that those like links to posts and stuff make the rounds in DMs. And I was like, why aren't we just talking about it? Because it's fun. It's fun. And on like a more serious note, I feel like people deserve to kind of know the thoughts of these leaders, especially like if they're looking for jobs. It's so easy to overlook stuff like that. So I started a newsletter called Founders Behaving Badly. I'm working on a podcast right now, TBD. So we'll see. And it's just like one of my fun passion projects, again, because of the juicy gossip side of things.
Who ever thought that we will love some corporate gossip? I know.
I'm not surprised because, like back in the day, we would have seen all this stuff on Twitter, or at least they might have been hid behind another profile. But then someone would have done some real deep digging and found out who it was, And so I think this stuff has been going on a long time. But I'm really glad that we are in the era of calling it out. I'm here for it. I'm with you, Amber. Every time I get your newsletter, I'm like, oh,
what's
it's like. It's like my juicy gossip laying in bed before I fall asleep. Who did what? I just love it. Sorry, my guinea pigs have decided to go completely feral. Can you hear them?
They agreed. They love the newsletter.
They love the goss. They love the juicy goss. So before we get into all of this, the thing that we love to do, Amber, is to ask everybody who joins the podcast about their deepest, darkest marketing confession fuck up.
Okay, I saw this question and I was like, I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of a baby marketer, and I'm not going to say that I have great attention to detail, but I usually make like small mistakes, not big, huge mistakes. But I do know that like last year or maybe the year before, I accidentally posted something for a client on my employer's LinkedIn page and was able to delete it within a few minutes. But I was like, oh no, like this is not supposed to happen. So I know that's kind of like a mild story, but that's my.
But you felt the panic, and I feel like that's enough. It doesn't matter. You felt the like, oh my God, I need to get this down.
We recorded a whole like mini podcast episode this morning, and it turns out that we were live streaming it to LinkedIn like the whole time. And thank God me and Emma like didn't like sidebar go off on something, because we do sometimes in our private chats, because that wouldn't have been great. It was just I think the beginning 10 minutes is us talking about bleaching our hair, and then we get into the topic.
Thank God. That's what we would sometimes.
Yeah, because sometimes like we have a little rant before a session starts. So yeah, I'm just really glad that we had a calm one today.
Oh my God, that would that's horrible.
Yeah. So let's dig into the topic. Why should we be discussing?
I think that like the answer to that varies. One of my reasons is that I feel like from like a workers' rights and awareness point of view, you should understand how CEOs approach certain topics, whether it's like if they're kind of shitty to their competitors or if they're saying really like things that don't agree with your values. I think that should be open and out there. So that's one reason. And then another is like from a marketing point of view, you just kind of have to like understand the public stance that CEOs are taking so that you can be prepared when they say something that people don't like. I think CEOs are more out there than ever right now. You know, they're on multiple channels. They're building their personal brands. And I think that personal brand side of things can really leak into like
Some
their
interesting
person.
content. Yeah.
They're just like,
I mean,
you don't have to say that, you know?
it's like when they don't go rogue and they are actually building a decent, like, personal brand, we see the uplift in that business's revenue. Like, there is a direct line. We know that when CEOs are active on social and they're doing good stuff, it's really good for business. It's really good for everybody. So yeah, the counter of that is what we're talking about, which is like when they go crazy, start posting. I mean, sometimes I mean, obviously we're going to get into this, but sometimes I don't think they think what they've posted is out there. I don't know if you guys feel like that, or whether you feel like some of these people, I mean, I guess it's a case by case basis, but do you feel like it's more that they're trying to stir attention and grab an audience and they're struggling to do it, so they post something a bit rogue? Or is it kind of like they're just actually dickheads?
I think, I think it's both. That really that made my brain short circuit. I think it's a little bit of both, because we are in this like hook culture where you have to have that snappy hook. The first like second is the most important to grab attention. And then some of it, I just wonder if they don't have the filters, like they haven't been trained, or they don't even think about it because they don't have marketing brain or PR brain. Like they don't have those mental filters to be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say this because it will piss off a customer or investor or prospect.
Yeah. And I think as well, when you get into the habit of posting and you kind of start posting more and more and kind of start mentally slightly pushing your content, sometimes you can, because of your like local max, kind of go over the line, and then you're going to have to pull back. It's interesting how these CEOs react to going too far, because some of them just literally can't give a fuck, and some of them, will delete the post apologies and all of that stuff. But yeah, it's interesting, like as well, like when I look at your newsletter, it's almost like a backlog of things that have happened, because a lot of the time they don't exist anymore. You can't find it except for when people have screenshotted it and spoken about it. So yeah, I think yeah, it's interesting in the reaction. And yeah, I agree, it's both, isn't it?
No.
Sometimes you should know where the line is.
You should know where the line is. And I've been thinking lately too about like probably more people are developing parasocial relationships with CEOs than ever before. And I think that in some way that like feeds the ego. Like everyone has an ego, and CEOs, I feel like you just kind of have to. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but they're suddenly getting like all of this positive feedback. Whereas in their organization that they run, they might not be getting that. They might be getting more pushback. So I think that there's just like they get a high from getting that attention.
Couldn't agree more.
So what are guys' favorite examples of CEOs, favorite but also like, oh my god, why did you do this, examples of CEOs going rogue? What's your favorite so far, Amber?
I think the boob one is pretty good. Like we could go ahead and talk about that one because it's so top of mind. I don't remember his name. James something.
The boob
Doesn't matter.
LinkedIn post guy now.
The boob
That's all
LinkedIn
he is.
post guy. This guy posted something that was just like, ideas are like boobs, and then it had a whole long reasoning for why they're, and it's just a picture of a woman, I think an actress.
Yeah.
Just like, okay. And he got a lot of attention from it. And he's a co-founder of, I guess, a yet to be launched startup or something. Because I went to the website and it just said coming soon.
Of course.
Yeah, and that was just like, that was a new one. I'd never seen anything quite like that before.
Have you received some good like private CEOs gone rogue submissions rather than like straight up LinkedIn postings?
I have, and because I don't want to get sued, I'm terrified of that. Like I'm in America and they'll sue you for anything. So I've gotten a few. I got one where they kind of vented about a past CEO that they had, and then went back and edited it and messaged me and was like, you can't post that. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to do it. Like,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
do get some juicy gossip, and I have some in my brain from like a few years ago that I just don't want to rehash, but I know it happened, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
The boob guy, what's everyone's theory? Do you think that was a tactical post, or do you think he just not a freaking clue?
I went on his profile. He doesn't post much. So I think this was his effort at starting to do LinkedIn stuff, and it just went too far, I think. Because he's not like a marketing person. I don't think he was, at least when I looked. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it feels like I'm gonna do an edgy post. I'm gonna talk about how boobs are like blah blah. And just no.
Yeah. I will say there was kind of a similar post. Do y'all know who Adam Robinson is?
We wish we didn't, but yeah.
Okay,
sometimes his posts are funny, sometimes not.
Yes.
Oh, the RB2E guy, yeah. This is so weird. I don't know people by their names. I know about through what companies they work in.
Yes.
That's what I associate with, which is crazy, right? Because it's like, well, I guess I'm going to judge RB2B for their shitty social post because it's of their CEO or whatever. So it does matter.
It does matter. And I might go back and forth on him because I've seen him talk live and it was really good. And he seemed like very level-headed. And I think so. He had a post a few months ago, and it was like he met someone on a rooftop, like founders meet, and this very attractive woman, like, and he kept mentioning her attractiveness. And people were like, why did you do that? And then in the comments, he all but admitted it was like, we thought we would do it for engagement to see if more people bit. And I was like, okay, at least you admit it, but that's still, I don't like that. Like, I don't like that tactic. And I wish that people wouldn't stoop to that because I feel like it takes away from the message. I don't understand it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Especially on a platform like LinkedIn, where, as much as there is a lot going on, and, Ruta and I don't always behave the most professional on LinkedIn, but there is still a line that I wouldn't cross. And that would basically, I think the line is being mean about someone specifically, like as in specifically going to attack someone, unless they attacked me first, in which case you're fair game. But also, objectifying people is just a no-no. Like objectifying someone, whether that's like, sexually or whatever. That's surely everyone knows that's not right. Like you work in companies where there are HR departments, don't you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that women too are better at clocking it than men are. And again, I think some of it is coming down to that like mental filter. But a lot of women already feel unsafe in their work environments, especially, I guess, in startups, typically are more male dominated. And you'd think you'd want to do better so that you could have like the best talent who would be more interested in you. But I don't think that people think that far.
What will happen is they'll interview someone who maybe is like very, I don't know what the word is, not sensitive, that's the wrong word, just cautious of what they say to make sure that they don't feel that like they make people excluded or like uncomfortable or whatever. And then whoever's interviewing them will be like, oh yeah, just not the right cultural fit, not gonna get the banter in the office and like the bro jokes. It's like, no, you're just dicks, thanks, bye.
Yeah, like I don't want part of your banter if that's what your banter.
Yeah, if this is it, like you need to go back to joke school because it's not funny.
And there is
clown school.
Yeah.
And there is a bit of a, especially in startup B2B tech land, which we are from, like there is a bit of a bro culture because it is very white, middle class, nepotism friendly. And so it does hold anyone who is different to that on the outside. And I do think that's where a lot of this comes from, where it's like those people are probably working in a vacuum with people who are like, yeah, that's funny. I think that's funny. I think, and they're not getting any kind of outside opinion because they're just listening to the like, the kind of like bros around them who think that posting stuff that's, I think, I mean, most of the time it's quite grotty. So what about when employees kind of fight back? Ruta and I have got our own example to share with you, Amber, which we think you're going to love. But obviously one of the big ones in the UK was the Brewdog scandal that came up quite a few years ago. The Brewdog guy is still relentlessly acting like a dick. I think we've mentioned him being a dick since the conception of this podcast as well.
He's
so he's
example.
And there's obviously that open letter online where the staff are basically like, this guy's awful, and the way the company culture is run is awful, and I can't imagine it's actually any better. What do you think about when employees kind of do that sort of thing, Amber, and they push back?
I think it's awesome. So
did you not see the picture of him that is kind of going around LinkedIn at the moment, where he looks like
Bane?
the guy in Bane from Batman.
From Batman, he's got this like thing on,
oxygen mask
on a Zoom call.
Like that's how he took the company Zoom. He looks, and it's going round because people are like, I think this is brilliant. But when you look at the people also in the LinkedIn post,
they're like,
in the Zoom,
they're like,
what are you doing? It's freaking weird.
God. Sometimes I'm like, do they lean into like they want to be Lex Luthor, or they want to be supervillains? Because they like Mark Zuckerberg and his MMA fighting and his like chains and new style, and then Jeff Bezos just like getting totally jacked. Like, I don't get it. I think that they get off on like this feeling of power and villainry in some ways. I think that as an American, I might have a pretty different point of view about how employees can fight back, because I think in a lot of ways we feel very strapped, like not able to do this because our health insurance is attached to employment. A lot of times we can be fired at will, just so they could just be like, you're gone without cause, stuff like that. Yeah. So I think a lot of it does happen in the back channels where people are talking about it in DMs, or like woman to woman, you have a conversation and you're like, what happened? Why did you leave? And then they tell you the real story. And I think that happens more often than not. And it might end up on Glassdoor. It might end up on reviews. Some people might be brave enough to talk about it publicly, but I do think that it tends to be, at least for smaller startups, just the whisper network side of things.
Yeah. It is. And I definitely think also it's a thing, having been through this myself, having worked for like it was actually a woman, a monster of a boss. I was just really relieved that I got out of there alive. Like, honestly, it just, the feeling of being, the relief of not having to work with that person anymore who has that like real, like insane personality that you never know what you're kind of coming into at work. Yeah, you're like, oh, I'm just grateful I don't work for that person anymore. And yeah, your survival mechanisms are basically like ranting to your friends over a beer outside of work. And especially when you're more junior, you do feel like you can't leave as well. Like there's a bit of, I always think it's a bit like Stockholm syndrome. Like when you've got a boss like that, you're like, I can't. What if I leave? What's going to happen? What if I tell them I hate them? What's going to happen to me? What if I bring them up on all this stuff? But yeah, in the UK is definitely different. People are more protected. It's definitely easier to kind of be more public about. We left some
spicy reviews on Glassdoor before.
Yeah, well, nice. Ruta, you tell Amber the story.
Not gonna say who it is because obviously, you know what, they are the kind of people that would sue you. So not gonna say who it is. Emma and I used to work together, and then we left, and we were very clear in our Glassdoor reviews after we left, why we left, in excruciating detail, explaining how they work, and not even like how they work as like people, but like how they plan to run the function that they just bought is just not going to happen. And it was obvious that it was us because, you know, who else is going to have that detail and that kind of, you know, conversation. And then I remember that they responded to the Glassdoor reviews, and then their responses were just hilarious. I think I said something on the lines of like, we're in 2020, whatever the year was, and your text still looks like it's from 1990. And then the person that responded is one of the HR people, and they're like, oh, actually, we were founded in 1995. I was like,
okay.
Really? That's going to be your response?
Of all the things.
Yeah, of all the things to say. And the people that were still there after, they were like, did you guys like leave those reviews? And we're like, yeah, like it's
What I thought was weird about the whole situation is obviously some of these reviews were pointed at the CEO, which I think is, because the CEO at the time was a complete dinosaur. It was very much like rule by, I am the top of the hierarchy. I'm not really interested in what you minions think type attitude. And it was a board of all white middle-aged men. And, again, that comes with a certain I don't know what to say. It comes with a certain flavor, or not a very strong flavor, should I say? But yeah, they that was kind of, and that it was just, what I thought was interesting is that I don't recall them ever really asking us about, like, number one, why we wrote them, but also like dealing with some of the bigger issues of that, like why we thought we should publicly say this about this company. Yeah. And I think it goes back to what you were saying, Amber, which was that we were like, no, I don't want people to go and work for this company that has this sort of CEO and this kind of mentality. Like, we want people to go and work at companies, or at least know what you're getting into when you go and work for a company. And that, so like, it was kind of our moment of just, trying to help people, I guess, if you like.
It's what birthed Blame It on Marketing in our heads, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. And we checked in on them today. To this day, they have like a 2.5 out of 5 stars, like from thousands of reviews on Glassdoor. And it's like, we weren't being salacious in any way. Like, this is clearly a problem.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, that's our fight back story. It was very satisfying, wasn't it? It was good to get it off your chest, but we'd also quit by then, and things like the NHS exist, so please don't do this kind of thing if you are in any kind of compromised position, because it's not worth it as much as you might hate your boss.
So the biggie, if you work for a company and your CEO has done something like this, where they have gone online and they have, I don't know, talked about someone's tits or turned up with a freaking Bane mask on a Zoom call and then are posting about how great they are afterwards, how, as a marketer, is there any way that we can manage this kind of behavior? And I guess, where is the line where you would be like, oh shit, we're going to need to get like crisis PR involved?
Yeah, this is something I've been thinking about, and I've been lucky to not have to work with these organizations or with CEOs that do go rogue. Like, always have worked with people who are very level-headed. I think that there's like a certain amount of protections that you can think about ahead of time, like having a social media policy, having some sort of review process, like making sure that the CEO has someone who checks over it and looks for like weirdness before they post something. Some media training. I think that media training has traditionally been thought for like talking to the press, right? But now with social media, it's democratized. So there needs to be media training for everyone. And I don't know if that comes from an internal or external source, but I do think that there has to be something there. I don't know if HR should be involved with that, but I do think that it's necessary. So I'm in the very early stages of thinking this through, and I'm sure there's like huge corporations that have thought this through to like the nth degree. I'm curious how they manage stuff like this. Like, what do they do when Mark Zuckerberg goes off the walls? No clue.
Yep. My first marketing tech job was at a PR and comms platform. So one of the things that we used to do for our clients and in events is bring in this crisis PR agency and actually teach people how to create a crisis plan and how to deal with a crisis. And literally the example is your CEO has said something stupid online. That's like the example.
Number one.
God, this was like 6 years ago. I probably worked there. So like even then, so yeah, there are organizations that will sort this out for you. They're going to be expensive as hell because you're going to need them like right now. They're going to have to drop everything and help you. But I think having a little bit of a crisis plan internally, even if it's just like, okay, one of us saw something that's not right on social, what do we do? Do we go into the account and delete it immediately? Do we like contact someone? Like, what's the plan? Maybe like 3 levels of bad, from a spelling mistake to like someone saying something outrageous, and just have a little bit of a thought, because you don't want to be dealing with it in the moment, probably. And I know it sounds like it probably won't ever happen and there's no point, but literally it's a half an hour thinking and planning job, and then hopefully you'll never have to use it.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think my experience of this comes from primarily working in the NGO sector, where a crisis can be anything from someone saying something stupid all the way through to someone's dropped a bomb on a country and, oh my God, what are you going to do? And so, like, the severity of the risk attached to what people do and say online is, we're talking about is global politics, right? So we're talking about heavy shit. That's all anyone needs to know. And so everyone has a risk register, and everyone hates this, right? Because it's kind of goes back to corporate governance and policies and processes. But then you know what to do when this stuff happens, and you have like attached to it a rating or a rag status or something that says like, if something happens online and it is that serious, it's in the red category, and you know who to call. You know where the nuclear codes are. You know where the button is to press to get the help. And I think if you are suspicious that you may have a CEO that is in that category, or even, it could be anybody, just people in your business actually now are just posting actively online, and you're concerned, I think, just like Ruta said, like, make sure you know who to go to, like how you're going to handle it, I think. And make sure, it's kind of categorized, like for everything from like, are you going to delete the post? Are you going to comment back? Depending on the nature of the post, right?
Yeah.
And people hate that stuff. I know everyone hates it, and especially in sexy startup land, nobody wants a freaking risk register and corporate governance, but it will save your ass.
Crazy, It can be
It's
literally
just
a little doc,
spreadsheet with like 10 things on it. That's it. Like, including your competitors have built a new feature, it's fine.
Ooh.
It's not that deep,
I like that. And I think, there's this philosophy in startup land, sexy startup land, that you move fast and break things. And now it's, I believe, easier than ever to break trust when you move really, really fast. It's market.
Yes. On a t-shirt.
Yes. And having something like that, just the physical reminder, if someone doesn't have mental filters, then you're giving them just, I don't know, PR filters or something to run things through, to just make sure that you're not on a path that will break trust. Because I think of this, did you hear about the Bordy app? You subscribed to the newsletter, so maybe you did. Bordy AI, that's what it was. They sent these AI generated emails in the voice of Donald Trump on Inauguration Day in the US. And they were just like, we have a message for you from a very special person. And they never like mentioned his name or anything, but they
specific voice.
I just know.
Yes, they generated the message based on the profile, and oftentimes like the profile picture. So for the messages to women, it would default to their appearance, and it would be like, that's a great red lipstick, very attention catching, stuff like that. And it just like a moment of thought, a line on a spreadsheet could have prevented that person who was like, oh my God, that's such a funny idea, we should do it, and then just hit go on the AI machine. It would have prevented them from doing that, because they would have thought, oh, maybe this is not the time.
So obviously we've spoken about CEOs going rogue, whether it's in private or on LinkedIn, but Emma pulled up a really great point that it might be just someone in your organization, like a new person that you've recruited, right? And you didn't quite realize their tendencies on social media. How can you set the right tone from the outset? Is there anything you'd be thinking about, like as the social media person at a company, being like, okay, if new people join, this is probably what they should know?
Yeah, I think it should be part of onboarding. Like within their first 2 weeks, they should be talking to the social media manager, communications manager, whoever handles that. 15 minutes, like, here's our social media policy. We're not going to babysit what you talk about, but you should know that this is like our approach. And these are the lines that we don't want you to cross as a representative of the company. And I think just like opening that dialogue sooner rather than later, so that if they have a question, they come to you and don't just be like, I'm just going to risk it. I'm just going to ask for forgiveness and not for permission. Almost, I think in most cases, those people would welcome you asking for permission as you get used to what those bumpers are.
It's so
It's
crap
actually
because it's so counterintuitive for like me to hear that, because I'm so the like ask for forgiveness, not for permission. But also it's because I've had it instilled in me where the line is. So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess for most
It's
people, they
easy
do
for you,
need
yeah.
to ask. I'm going to retract all my previous statements that you should now ask for permission.
Only if you don't know what you're doing. If you think something is on the edge where you need to ask permission, you probably need to ask permission. You know, like it's a good heuristic. I think this is actually a really good space for like custom GPTs as well. So you can make a custom GPT with your company's social media policy and have it as a checker, and just give everyone a link and be like, if you're unsure, just copy and paste, and it will respond to you if it thinks it's okay, and it's something super simple. So I think if social media people aren't using that as a tool, it's a really easy and simple thing, and maybe some people are shy about asking and don't want to seem like they're idiots, so it'll just prevent that from happening.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
I mean, we're going to ask you about marketing gossip, but I feel like this was the whole episode. So have you got
Unless you've got anything else for
any
us,
other marketing
slow
gossip? It
down.
doesn't have to be social media based. It could be like, new features and products that you've noticed that you love or don't love.
I am getting very tired, and I think a lot of people are, of like not owning anything anymore. Like it's really pissing me off that, like you could buy like Photoshop and then you had it and now you have to pay for
Not
it
anymore.
month after month. I wonder if we're ever going to circle back, and probably not, but if we would ever circle back to like you get to buy a thing and then you get to keep it, and then that's the differentiator.
I
We
mean,
probably
that's
will.
a really good question. This SaaS bubble has to end at some point, right? So like in terms of like the monthly subscription model.
Yeah, but the problem is like one of the things that I think is happening there is that no SaaS company really wants to say out loud that they're struggling because of the monthly subscription model and locking people into 2-year, 3-year contracts.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to say that out loud, but it is the truth. Universally acknowledged that subscription models suck ass.
Depends.
They do though.
It depends on the subscription, because I bet there's loads of subscriptions that people have even though they don't use all that much, and if they had to repurchase it as a chunk payment they wouldn't, but because it's not that expensive they'll just keep it on like the tabs, and I think a lot of there's a good percentage of revenue that comes from that. So yeah, it's funny you say that, Amber, because at the end of last year I reviewed all of the tech that I pay for, because I'm a consultant, right? So I pay for all of my stuff myself. And I did cut some stuff out. But for the stuff that I really loved, it was right around the Black Friday period. So I literally signed up for the year for everything, because everything was on like discount and I could basically get stuff half price, which isn't the same as owning something. But the fact that my bank card isn't dinging every month with like 12 different subscriptions mentally feels a lot better than it would. And I know it's not the same thing. I'm so aware of that, but it feels a little bit better. And I do get a good deal because I'm using it anyway, right? So
I'd like to own stuff. I wonder what that would be like. It's the eternal curse of being a millennial, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't own anything.
I bought an avocado the other day. I don't mean to brag.
Amber, thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't signed up to Amber's newsletter and you want to get the juicy goss in the B2B world, we'll leave a link in the description down below. Go say hello to Amber, go visit blameonmarketing.com. Just go do the good stuff. That's it. Yeah. Thank you very much.